Okay, so as most of us know, millennials are also known as the millennial generation or Generation Y. And they are typically born between the years ranging from the early 1980s to the years 2000. Millennials now represent the largest generation in the United States, comprising roughly one-third of the total population in 2013. There are 74 million millennials, including 6.3 million in Texas. Also, millennials are the most optimistic generation. So despite some struggles, many millennials are optimistic. 69% don't think they earn enough to lead the lifestyle they want now, but 88% they think well in the near future. Another fact is that millennials are very highly educated, but they are burdened by student debt. So they are the most educated generation, and one-fourth of the generation has at least a bachelor's degree. According to the Institute for College Access and Success, the average amount of student debt for college graduates is about $28,400. So some of the challenges that millennials face are: number one, last year nearly 5 million millennials were out of work in the United States, including 344,000 in Texas, which made up almost half of the unemployed in Texas and in the nation as a whole. And since the recession began in 2007, more millennials have moved into lower paying jobs such as working at hotels and restaurants, and fewer are working at higher paying jobs such as at financial services and manufacturing. Another challenge that is faced is low home ownership. So millennials' employment and debt struggles have kept many of them from buying a house. And if you're not buying a house, then you're spending expenses on home movers or furniture and home repairs. Millennials are the first generation to witness home prices go down, and because of that, they're afraid to buy houses, just as back in the Great Depression. Nationally, the number of first-time home buyers is down to 27%, from when it used to be about 40% back in 2007. The last challenge is that millennials are reporting the highest levels of anxiety, depression, and stress. And that kind of explains why so many 20-something girls feel like they're going through a quarter-life crisis. And now I'll move it on to Kamisha to talk about millennial proofing.
Okay, so thank you, Dina. I'm going to talk to you about millennial proofing as well as managing millennials. So basically, millennial proofing is creating a workplace that attracts millennials. It is also the most effective way to manage the multi-generational employees. We need to know that while employees in the past used to stick around, like our parents and our grandparents, in different employment opportunities, this is not the case any longer. Millennials will not stick around if they find that the company isn't doing as well as they want and to accommodate their needs. They're basically the no-nonsense generation, as most of us already know. There are currently 10% of millennials in the workplace, and that number would potentially increase as baby boomers and Generation X starts to retire, and therefore, we're going to be the economic force in the workplace. So moving forward, I'm going to show you a video to show the demands that millennials are currently making and changing the way that managers have to manage the new generation.
Last 6 months.
Sorry about that, guys. Just yourself a little bit.
I want to see this.
Engineered for protection.
So I'm trying to see that exactly like that. This is a preview.
Almost. Progress without sacrifice. Selfless, repeated routine.
Millennials in the workforce have been routinely accused of being everything from narcissistic and socially inept to hard to manage, and most recently of killing the middle manager. Whether any of these allegations are true is up for debate, but what is clear is that millennials are changing the way we work and how we organize. And these changes don't really bode well for the boss. We, and I'll include myself here, grew up in a world where if you had a question or wanted to learn a new skill, all we had to do was go to the internet. In some ways, we replaced authority figures like parents and teachers with computer screens. So it makes sense that when we enter the workforce, we'd be less inclined to take someone's advice or direction simply because of their title. CEO Phil Caravaggio from Position Nutrition found that out the hard way when his employees challenged his ideas for marketing his own company. He
that millennials are basically changing the whole working environment. They're demanding a lot and requires for management to change the practices because, the practices they used to work with our grandparents, from the 19th and 60th centuries, that doesn't work anymore. Like, we demand a lot, so it's important that the managers know exactly how to manage with millennials. One thing that we should know is that with the proper management, millennials can and will be the economic force of the future. Therefore, it's important for them to know how to manage them effectively. Now, tip number one. First thing that managers need to know is that your way is not the way of the millennials. The millennial generation, they question management practices, and they're not intimidated by titles. So if you're the CEO, you're the CFO, whatever the case may be, they have a lot of questions because they're a curious generation, and the managers better have those answers, legit answers to those questions. They're very knowledgeable workers, and they go wherever their heart goes. We saw from the article that Megan, she actually left her corporate job to pursue her passion in food and nutrition and fitness business. So basically, companies have to do stuff that can attract them and keep them employed in that company. Number two, you want to offer digital freedom. We grew up in an era where technology and social media has become an integral part of our lives. We cannot go a day or two without checking on Facebook, or Instagram, tweeting, Snapchatting, you just name it. So, a recent study from the University of North Carolina, they actually show that 1/3 of millennials actually prioritize social media freedom above salary. Quite frankly, I don't think I'm a part of that 1/3. So to reflect that value, employers can integrate social media into the company's marketing and networking processes. Number three, volunteer together. Millennials are very team-oriented, and so they feel strongly about giving back to the communities. So one thing employers can do is adapt to social cause, where millennials can go out into the community and become more involved, so that way they feel like their values are aligned with that of the company. Number four, give them a voice. Managers tend to think that millennials are, well, not millennials, but, if we're right out of college, no experience. But sometimes talent trumps experience, so they should give them a seat at the innovation table because they're very creative and have the chance to create, great ideas that the older generation might not even have thought about. Also, you want to give them meaningful projects. You want them to have an opportunity to work on different projects in which they can improve their talents and skills. You do not want them to do the same job over and over all day, every day. Number five. It's more than the money, sorry. So you want to create an environment for collaboration and offer flexibility with telecommuting to keep them engaged and motivated. So sometimes, for instance, let's say Fridays, that could be the day off when millennials can work from home. So that way they have that balance with the family life and the work life so that they don't feel stressed and overwhelmed by the corporate environment. You also want to offer diversified opportunities. For instance, further education. I know some companies, they offer a paid tuition in which employees can get their master's degree. However, that may come at a cost. You probably would have to stay at the company for, let's say, 5 years or so. However, all of those things combined can really improve the company's productivity, retention. So one thing they want to know about the millennial generation is attracting, developing, and showing that the company really knows exactly what the millennial generation demands. In closing, managers will need to know that millennials work to live and they do not live to work. With that being said, I'll pass it on to Letty, who's going to talk to you about the expectations of millennials in the workplace and millennials today.
Thank you, Felicia. As Dina mentioned earlier, the Gen Y tend to be highly educated, but burdened by student loan. Many of our unemployed or underemployed. College debt leaves grads less than wealthy than parents. Sorry to do that. They're also waiting longer time to get married, have kids, or to buy a home or car. Nearly in Texas, 1.9 million or 30% of them, they still live or they're forced to move back home to live with their parents. They all have potential to do whatever only aging but declining was the baby boomers because their millennial generation all fled out to look for another job, like to look for jobs. Um, they're like running behind on savings because most millennials don't want to save or doesn't have enough money to save. So they'd rather use it and spend it right now. So think about it later. Some of them they might have like 10% of them like they might save some money because of the employer's saving plan. According nearly to half of them like is gonna start saving by the time they turn 25 or after that. According to the article, Todd, who's graduate and veteran now, looks saving differently because I quote, "We're not saving for retirement. We're saving for flexibility." Because the generation have some potential, have both to fulfill a desire instead of waiting to the last minute and just spend the money because it just doesn't make sense. Uh, Looking towards the future, despite some struggles, many of us optimistic that we have a whole one day in the future we're gonna live us the way we wanted to live, because our education is gonna pay off by when economy improves. They live on volunteering and pay back to the community. Uh, their expectation, the millennium expectation on their workplace, we all want it to be sociable and sociable environment. 9 out of 10, we want workplace social and fun. We don't want no cubic. 93% of them we want to be ourselves because we don't want to be forced to do whatever we supposed like we expect to do, or we're not tempted with anyone's title. Um, the interesting part is the hub would rather have no job than a job they hate because we don't want to stay over there. If we don't like it, we're gonna leave. 93% of them, they work hard if they looking for it. If there is any promotion, they work towards their goal. Thank you. With that.
All right, I'll read the quiz for you now. So the first question is, millennials are born in the years ranging from the early blank to the early blank. Number 2, what is meant by the term millennial proofing? Number 3, list 3 tips